Now, obviously, we don't want to have to make a spreadsheet up to do something as basic as that. So what we have is this concept of future value. Now, future value, it's the amount of money that will be there at the end of, or the future from a single investment. So we've got an example here. You deposit $5,000 at 6% compounded annually. How much money will there be at the end of 7 years? Now, I have my formula here. And so I use my formula. So my present value, so this is how much I've got at the moment, is $5,000. My interest rate equals 0.06 or 6%. And N, so we want present value, interest rate and number of periods. Our number of periods equals 7. So then we use this formula here. Future value equals present value times 1 plus I to the N. So that equals, present value is 5,000 times 1 plus 0.06 to the power of 7. And we would do that in Excel or on a calculator, and I would expect you to know this formula. It's not a tricky formula. You will have used it a lot by the time you get to your tests. So this is a formula you're expected to know. Okay, so there's our first example, future value, and this is where our interest is compounded annually. Now, mostly these days, interest isn't compounded annually because we have computers to do it. Back when I was a little girl and I had my squirrel account, which was on a piece of paper basically, a little passbook, and I would go to the post office and put in my 10 cents a week, they would calculate on my little passbook by hand how much I'd put in, and they would also calculate on a little card that they kept at the bank. And then once a year, they'd get a whole lot of people with their fingers and thumbs and abacuses and so on, and they would calculate how much interest my little account had earned. And so back in those days, people used annual interest, or even maybe quarterly, but certainly not fortnightly or monthly as we have now. So these days, we can compound far more frequently because we have computers to do it. And basically, if you're trying to pay something off, the more often you can pay and the more often it compounds, the better. You want, well, if you're saving, you want interest working for you. When you're paying things off, you want it working against you. Or you want it the other way anyway. Okay, we've got one here. Sister deposits $5,000 at 6% compounded monthly. Okay, so the difference there is this was annually, this is monthly. How much money will she have at the end of 7 years? Okay, when it doesn't say otherwise, the 6% is always going to be per annum. And per annum means per year or every year. So in order, when you compound monthly, you need to multiply the number of years by 12 and divide the interest rate by 12, because we need our monthly interest rate and we need the number of months. Okay, so our present value for this one is $5,000 again. Our interest rate is 6%. Our number of periods is 7 times 12, which equals 84. Our interest rate is 0.6 divided by 12. 0.06 divided by 12, sorry. And so we get our future value equals the present value times 1 plus I to the n, which equals 5,000 times 1 plus 0.06 over 12 to the power of 84. Or you can make it 7 times 12, it doesn't matter. And so the answer is $7,601.85. Now look at that. Both of those were the same amount to start with. So they both started off with $5,000. Both of them have the same annual interest rate, but this one is compounded annually, and this one is compounded monthly, and you've gained just under $100 by simply having it compounding monthly rather than annually. And that is because the effective interest rate is in fact, though it is 6% divided by 12, because it compounds, you actually end up with an effective interest rate slightly higher. And some years ago when I was teaching this, I thought, I want to find out what the banks do when they talk about things being compounded monthly. Do they just divide by 12, or do they use a factor in order to get the amount that would compound to 12%? And I rang up the National Bank in Wellington and I talked to various people and no one could tell me. So to this day, I don't know which way they use. I presume they use what I'm doing here, but it didn't put me a great deal of confidence in whatever it was they were doing.